be more of a report. So we'll take care of what Karsten needs to with us first, and then we'll move on. So the first item on our agenda is administrative coverage due to absences.
Yeah, and I want to apologize to all of you because when Pam said succession planning, I've been thinking administrator coverage due to absences, which is like if I'm gone for a day, who does what? If I'm gone for 2 weeks, who does what? And so I'm sorry about that. But anyway, you can see the chart on the second page there that just lists each administrative position and then who serves as the backup. And one thing I want to emphasize is that if I am gone for a period of time, let's say 3 weeks for whatever reason, and it's not anticipated, and there has to be some stuff done that requires a superintendent's license, the best thing to do is just to call the Minnesota School Board Association, and they will guide the process or make recommendations. So they are always a good resource. And and Pam, I'm assuming you're okay, but if we could add, we'll talk about succession planning after the flexible learning days.
Sure.
And then hopefully I can, as soon as my medical appointment's done, then I'll try to rejoin the committee. So.
Sure. Yeah, when I was talking about coverage, I was thinking more long-term about a succession plan. You had it in your mind that you were talking about short-term, and they actually find in that presentation, they talked about, what is short-term versus long-term. And they did talk very specifically about your first call needs to be MSBA. They will guide you through the whole process. But I do think it's really important that we have a policy or something in written form that says this is what the chair will do, this is what the vice chair will do. They even talked about forming a succession committee, which would be chair, vice chair, superintendent, and clerk. So we don't want to be ever in a predicament as a board or a district that doesn't know definitively what's going to happen. And I think, COVID right now has kind of raised this concern up to the top of the list for me now that we've gotten through all of the immediacy of covering for COVID. But now, as we can look back and think, oh my goodness, what would have happened? What should we do if? And so, now we can start thinking about that. And so I definitely don't want to lose the idea and the importance of trying to get that done.
Yeah, and so what I can do is I'll take the PowerPoint presentation and then, either copy most of it or summarize it or share the highlights. I'm not sure what. Yet because I haven't seen it, but we can bring that back for the April meeting.
Sure. The superintendent from New Ulm, he and a few people from their district were the ones that presented that. And my guess is they've got a policy on their website. But I think, even a quick call to him or her to talk about, can we model ours off of yours or have that as a jumping point, a starting point, might be worth the call.
Yeah, usually as long as we give them credit and,
Yeah.
Ask for their permission, then people are okay with it.
Yeah.
So any questions about what I did include in there as far as the administrative coverage?
Holly or Jennifer, do you have any questions about, the section 6.2 administrative coverage due to absences? That is in the employee handbook.
Or administrative procedures handbook.
Thank you. That's what I meant.
Yep.
Thank you. But, it wouldn't be a bad idea to copy this into the school board handbook just so that we are all aware that if you are gone, who do we need to contact?
Right. Yeah, I'll at least make a reference to it.
Sure. All right. Well, we got through that item. More to come on that with the succession plan. And then business item 2.2 is the timeline for the superintendent negotiations.
Yeah, I think it was Anna who brought this up as an issue because of last fall's discussion. And so her suggestion was to include something, sorry, in the handbook as far as the preferred timing for negotiating with superintendent or making decisions not to negotiate with the superintendent. And so I just took the Article 3 about superintendent evaluations and just added negotiations because they seem like they should probably tie together, I thought. So I threw out there that after the October, November evaluation, that tentatively the school board would make a decision about offering a subsequent contract to the superintendent. Negotiations immediately ensue, or plans to find a replacement are developed. That's what I threw in there. Now I will pause a little bit because I've not looked at that succession planning, and we'd want them to mesh. So but at least that's what I'm throwing out there now. I do think that a decision in late fall or early winter is advantageous to not only me, but also the school board, because it does take time to decide on a plan, to advertise, to interview, and we want to be earlier in the process rather than later in the process because you're going to get the best candidates possible. So that's why I suggested November, December. It would be after the evaluation in October, November. Any feedback about that or questions or changes?
Holly or Jennifer, anything that pops up?
Sorry, Holly.
You go.
Go ahead.
I'll wait till you're done.
Okay. I was just going to say that I also watched that meeting last year when you had that, but it seemed to me from that you had determined ahead of time that November, December was the best to go with that, but then there was some controversy about whether to include the new school board members or not. My feeling is that the school board in November, December has worked with the superintendent and did the evaluation and knows the goals moving forward better than the new school board members would and do. And so I'm completely comfortable with that. I don't think it's necessary to include the new school board members in that. So I think if the November, December plan works the best, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, and I can see it, to be honest, I can see it both ways. But I tend to agree with you, Jennifer, that, the one board, it makes sense to have that board, make a decision for the reasons you described. And then on the other hand, there could be 3 or 4 new board members who would be stuck with me, so I can definitely see it both ways. One thing, and legally this isn't true, but even at the end of, let's say, the April, May evaluation, if board members said, Karsten, thank you for your years of service, but we want to encourage you to look for other employment. I mean, I think many superintendents, and certainly I, would take that into account. And because you want to work in a place with a board that wants you to be there, and community that wants you to be there. And so I would hope that other superintendents, certainly I, would take that into account and then look for other employment. So I don't know if that makes a difference or not. And obviously when you have a contract, then it's legally bound. So I realize it's not a legal interpretation, but at least for me, for practical purposes, I think that makes sense.
And we can also, for many reasons, terminate a contract at other times other than, just when the start date or the end date, for obvious reasons. So, we can always terminate if need be. So we don't have to wait. But, I think it's helpful to have a guideline of negotiations. But I think Arlen's point that he made on last Monday night is valid. Like, do we really want to be tied into a black and white cut in stone? This is how we're going to do this, because who knows? I mean, I think, I mean, I can see it both ways. Like, sometimes it's really great to have a roadmap and help us, especially as the personnel committee. This committee has typically driven the negotiations with the superintendent and his contract. So, I guess I'm open either way. I think it's helpful to have a roadmap, but I also think it's important to know that we might have to be flexible given life and whatever may happen. I don't know, but I think Arlen was trying to make that point that it's maybe a better idea to be more flexible than rigid. Holly, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, having come on the board when I did, it was not a very organized system. And there was a lot of up in the air about, well, we should do this, we should do that. When should we do this? How should we do that? So for a new board member to come in, trying to learn the nuances of that situation, and then trying to get your feet on the ground about what evaluations look like, what are we evaluating on, but then having, the experience of living in Red Wing and things that I have experienced personally or that people have brought to me about certain situations. I don't necessarily think it has to be the in-board that makes that contract negotiation. I think there's a lot of value to new board members coming on and having a say about the direction that they would like the district to be going in based on what the experience has been coming in to being a board member. So I, like Carson, I can see it both ways. This is the first time in the history that I have seen that it has been organized to the degree that it is. So I think that that's a very big feather in our cap. But prior to this, which was why there was a lot of controversy last time. And there was a lot of, what's the timeline? What did we agree on? When did we agree on that? What happened 3 years ago? So I think having it in writing, like Pam is saying, to give us a roadmap makes sense. And nobody predicts COVID, right? Nobody predicts those big events that happen. And hopefully this will be a once in 100-year event, but things would have gotten in the way, and things did get in the way of Carson being able to do other things that were related to our mission and our, plan, not related to COVID. So I think some board members evaluated based on how COVID was handled and not necessarily how our strategic plan had been followed. And so, there's a lot of different things, but I'm happy to see that the board is moving in a direction of more continuity and a framework, that we can come to some agreement on.
I'm writing that.
I hate to break off here, but I need to access my Mayo appointment again. I'm so sorry. This was supposed to be a couple weeks ago, but with my own personal health, it got rescheduled to now. So I apologize for that, but I will come back as soon as I can.
No worries. We got
All
this,
right.
Carson. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll be back.
Thank you.
I wrote the word framework down because I think that's exactly right. And I think if we had a framework or a roadmap to work from, there would have been a lot less questions and it would have been a smoother process. So, I very much appreciate that. And if whatever we can help us to navigate through this very difficult job as being school board members, and, like new board members are trying to build a plane as you fly it. I mean, this is super hard stuff. So the more frameworks we can provide for existing board members, it's super helpful for me, but also Jennifer, for, you and Nikki and Anna, to have something to hang your hats on. I think that's super helpful too. So I love the word framework. All right. So the next piece of our agenda is the flexible learning day guidelines, and Mrs. Grove is here to kind of give us an update on where things are at with the flexible day guidelines. So I'll turn it over to you, Jen. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see all of you. So I will briefly go over what the framework is and then talk about those next steps. What we're going to do is we're going to be offering access to online instruction or prepared activities that are provided by our teachers for use during inclement weather, and we can have up to 5 of those. For grades K through 6, this kind of looks like a bingo card or an assignment card, just of different activities that are related to what the curriculum is. Now, when we look at grades 7 through 12, that'll be a little bit more complicated because we will expect that there will be Google Classroom and meets and assignments posted on Google Classroom. Just so you know, these days will not be designed to like replicate that face-to-face instruction that we provide on a day-to-day basis. But what we're thinking is that it can provide some review of standards that have been learned, and kind of keep it going without just it being a day off. And we think that it's pretty well, we can do that well with the Wonders because it spirals as well as it does. So we know that even if we have, say, 2 cards for the year with about 15 or 16 activities on there, we will be able to hit different standards that have already been touched on in the classroom for grades K-6, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, let me know. With the state statute, though, we can have a maximum of 5 days for these flexible learning days. What I imagine that this looks like is that, in the morning, the parents are going to receive the phone call from Karsten that says that school is out, and we will ask the kids to not report to school, but instead engage in those flexible learning activities. And how I imagine that will be presented is for our K-6, we will have these activities linked on the district website, but we will also provide these activities to parents at the start of the year and at the start of the semester. So again, I'm imagining like two sets of cards, one for that fall, so that as we get to November and December, and then one after, January hits, because we know that we're going to have plenty of snow. Holly, do you have a question?
Yeah, I couldn't get my microphone going. Okay, providing the cards, meaning you will provide them a paper copy and an online version and
yes.
Okay.
Here's what we're thinking. We're thinking that we know that we're not going to require that K-6 bring their computer or their Chromebook home every night, and that would just be a pain for all sorts of reasons, right? We're supposed to read the weather, make sure that, we don't know necessarily if the evening before that they have to bring their computer home. So we will have paper copies available, at least for grades K-6. And I really should be saying E-6 because I've talked to Brittany about this at Covell, and they would like to offer something along the same lines, so that we're kind of all on the same page. And then again, with the grades 7 through 12, what we're looking for is for teachers to be posting in the Google Classroom by about 9 on those snow days, for the students that they would see that day. Yes, Holly.
Thank you. Do you know if, just offhand, if we're going to be sticking with Google Classroom or if we're going to look at another learning management system?
I would imagine at this point, we're going to stick with Google Classroom. Because it's what we're most familiar with.
Do you know if they've added a parent component for parents to log in and access to see how their kids are doing?
Well, kids can be, with the Google Classroom, parents can be invited. So if they're not invited, I think that's something that I should probably know about so that
Okay.
I could remind our teachers to invite parents to review. Most of the time, parents can go in, they can see what has been completed, what hasn't been, what even might have been submitted for an assignment, perhaps not completely done. So, but mostly actually for parents, they'll be able to see what. I apologize, because as I'm thinking about what I can pull up for Amy, my 7th grader right now, I can get a progress report from her And
That's why, I mean, we had talked about this prior to you coming into this role, about the learning management system for high school specifically. So the parents can be super engaged with what's being turned in. You know, prior when we had campus, or I don't know, what did we use in Red Wing before parents could kind of log on and see what had been submitted? But I just know that it's really tricky.
so Synergy and Google Classroom don't speak together really well,
Right.
right? And that can be problematic. We had ties prior to.
Yes, ties.
Yeah, so you're right. However, parents can receive information or progress reports from parents through Google Classroom.
Okay, so that just winds right back into when the kids are doing things like they are at home now, you know, what are we looking forward to in terms of high school? But you wouldn't be the one to necessarily answer that. And right now isn't the platform, but that's just kind of where my head's at.
It's a great question. So when we're talking about the work that needs to be completed, what I'm looking for is that we would give all kids 1 week to get work done.
Okay.
That's kind of how we would be, that's how we would track our attendance for that. And it allows kids who don't necessarily have access to the internet at home an opportunity to get the work done. Now, do we know that a teacher is probably going from the high school is going to post something on Google Classroom and a kid may not be able to get to it? For sure, that's probably something that's going to happen. So they'll have those additional days, that week's time to get it turned in. And I have talked to George about how he wants that to roll out. He would like some flexibility for his teachers at the high school, since there are so many different subjects and things. I'm fortunate to be at the elementary level here where we know that we have K-6, we have wonders, right? We have the by math. So we can stick to maybe more of a plan than what the high school is able to do. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. When we're looking at staff availability for this, what we'd be looking for teachers and other licensed professionals is to make sure that they will be available by email or phone, or even Google Meets from like 9 to 11, a morning session, and then an afternoon from 12 to 2. So that'd be about 4 hours. And then we would have those teachers also just shoot an email, particularly the older kids, shoot an email through their Google Classroom to say, this is when I'm available for a meeting. And unless we have paraprofessionals that are assigned virtually to work with students on the flexible learning days, we are going to be looking at how we can provide paraprofessionals some additional training, maybe through Who Knew It, maybe through Infinitec, those things that kind of match with what our 5-year plan is, so that we can provide them with that additional training. I was fortunate to work with Mandy Stokes and with Brent Stinson on this. So I have had a couple of building reps have their eyes on the plan. And Brent Stinson comes from Kingsland, where they have been working on this kind of program for a couple of years. So he has some experience. Initially, what our plan is that we'll pay like 2 staff from grades K to 6 for about 2 hours of time to develop the boards. This kind of will take off, at least initially, the additional planning burden from the teachers. And what it also allows is similar activities for all classrooms. So that provides for a little bit of equity there. And when we do that, it will go back to what our Wonders curriculum and our My Math is. I do also intend to make sure that we have opportunities for specials linked into those assignment cards. And I guess this is the first year, so we're not entirely sure how it will play out. And we did want to make it as easy as possible for our teachers, as clear as possible, and easy to access for parents as possible. And we know that there are going to be tweaks. I will have to run this plan through the union, the upper levels, so that we make sure that we're doing the right thing. But we also, think about having a snow day and you're a teacher and you may not have your stuff at home. We want to be as prepared as possible.
I have a question, Jen.
Yes.
I'm assuming that this plan is all encompassing of all students. I'm just wondering about our special ed population and how a flexible learning day might be transferred for their needs?
So that's a really great question, because we could have discussions about those flexible learning days during the course of the IEP and have paraprofessionals assigned to be of assistance, much like some of our paras are doing right now, and being almost a resource time. So that is something I think that as we refine this plan, I really need to talk to all of the case managers about what works best. Now, if I consider the younger kids, the very young children, that's going to be fairly difficult to do unless they have their technology there. For the older kids, I think it would be beneficial for us to make sure we have the paras available, at least for like a resource time or some support.
Thank you.
Maybe like a rotating schedule.
Something. Now, if I could pick your brain about that, that would be great.
Right. I'm just thinking like we have them. What we do here is just a rotating schedule of when the kids can pop into a Google Meet and access support. So
Lots of layers of thinking about this, Jen. So thanks for doing all this work. It's a lot. So
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm pretty fortunate to have had Brent be a part of the team to work on this, since he kind of knows how it's been implemented and how it looks.
awesome. Fabulous. Other questions for Mrs. Grove while she's still here? Okay, well, more to come on that, I bet. So thanks for your work on this so far, and we'll see you soon.
That sounds great. Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
And then I believe we were going to have an update report on teachers on call. Is anyone on this call that was going to give us an update on that? Perhaps not. Community recreation coordinator. Do we have any updates on that, Dawn?
Yes, when we changed the agreement with the city of Red Wing, we no longer needed some of the components that were in the last job description. So as when anybody leaves any of program in our area, I review the job description and the duties and see if there's any way we can combine duties to better access, not only the revenue that's available, but to make sure that the individual has a job that's reasonable. So I sent this in to be rebanded and relooked at by Bjorklund, who does our job ratings. And he came back with an increase because we are now going to be asking this individual to help out with some programming at Twin Bluff. They will be looking and they'll be testing the chemicals 7 days a week in the morning, which is currently done by another individual. So we're combining some duties. And not that this person will be doing all of the duties, but they'll be managing and coordinating the duties. So this job increased from a 16-point scale to an 18 points. So what I'm asking today is just that we move this up. Right now in the non-classified section, this is currently in a C category. And I don't have that document. I don't know if Karsten was going to put that up, but I would like to move it to a B, which everybody else in that category is a B, which would be the school age care coordinator, which is community ed, the arena manager, and then also the IT individual, who would be Charlie. So they're all in the non-classified B category. Those points in that area are all 18 and 19. One 19, the others are 18s. So what I'm looking at is just moving this individual from one category to the other. So just an increase in responsibilities, and been very careful to re-examine each position. This is one of the positions we had on furlough. And because the city council has yet to make a decision on the pool, what we have done with the 2 positions out of 3 that we've put on furlough is we've divided the duties up to be the remaining individuals in our department. We can't add any more. We can't open, because the pool will be hiring 80 people. We can't do it. Everybody is maxed out. So I'm going to have to hire an individual. Not only running the pool, but we run AP Anderson, the fields for the city. We also run all of the athletic camps and programs in the summer. So it's too much. So looking at having to, even though I'm hesitant, because if the city doesn't open the pool, this person will have some availability, but I will assign them other tasks. What we did in the spring is we all took our turn at Kids Junction, me included. We each took a day and we worked there, and that's what we did. So this person would be hired knowing that if the pool doesn't open with the city, that they will be reassigned, and that whatever job needs to be done, that we'll be doing it. So I don't anticipate the city making a decision probably till April, but I have to have somebody hired again.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of even hiring people to put, 75 to 80 people that we need to hire for the pool, the concession stand, and the other programs we run in the summer.
Holly has her hand raised.
What?
Dawn, what
Yes.
are you hearing around the state in terms of pools opening?
Well, it's really divided. If you talk to the people who hold the purse strings, they're very hesitant because there's still a lot of restrictions with COVID. Currently, it's only 25% capacity up to 250. We're just shy of 800 at the city pool. So, it wouldn't pay them to open because of the configuration of our pool. We can't reduce lifeguards because of the safety factor. So we can't really rope off some of our pool. So, but if you talk to the program coordinators, they're all moving forward with planning to open as usual. So it's real divided. Fortunately, Dave Borgen, who was in our program for 20 years, that he was my coworker, he has volunteered to come back to help us a little bit. Once we get a person hired, he will help with the training to make sure that they're on board and they know what they need to do. Unfortunately, most of our supervisors have moved on to other things with the pool not being open last year. My only hesitancy, and it's totally out of my control, I don't want to hire a bunch of young people thinking they're going to be making, 40, 50, 60 hours a week and then tell them in April they don't have a job. So again, we'll have to do that hiring that it's, it's still up in the air, which, it's really hard because we did the same thing last year. We had people hired and then the pool wasn't open. So it's just COVID, another COVID issue that we just have to move forward and proceed as if the pool is going to open. So hopefully we are going to get some good candidates that can do what we need to have done with both the city programs and the school district. Any questions or?
No, I think you definitely put all of this out very thoughtfully, and I always think that it's very important to continually look at rebanding, looking at our positions, and needing to make sure that we are being mindful of what people are doing. And you laid that all out very well about the additional duties and changing, taking one whole person's job duties and having to divide it between two people. So I think we need to do what you've recommended, and I'm super glad to hear that Dave's coming back. Do you have any idea when? I know you said the city's not going to make a decision until April. Do you have any thoughts on early April, end of April?
Well, I don't. I've asked that the city council bring it up. They meet the 2nd and 4th Mondays. So I've asked that they start talking about the need to make a decision. Unfortunately, we haven't had decisions made very quickly. Right now, 25% capacity, it wouldn't even make sense because right now you have to have people sign in and give you ID so you can do contract tracing. It's just a lot of work. I really don't know because as you all sit here, we know the school board sometimes works slow. Working with city council, they work much slower. So, but they have really played on the side of safe. They're still not doing in-person meetings. They're being very cautious. They went ahead and closed the concession stands at the outdoor rinks. They didn't even have to have much discussion. They just closed those. So we did have the outdoor rinks open, but the warming houses were not. So we did not have to staff those. We just had to put the ice on. So I really don't know. I don't know. I'm hoping no later than mid-April, but last year it was the end of May or the middle of May. I feel really responsible for the young people that are going to rely on us for employment. And I just don't want to tell them that they don't have a job for the second year in a row. So.
Well, and that's tough too, because, it's kind of an egg and hen situation too, because kids who want to be a lifeguard, now is the time that they would go ahead and do all of their training. And if you wait too late, we're not going to have enough lifeguards that are certified. No. Maybe there's not an opportunity for them to become certified. So, that's a hard position too to be in. And your lifeguards that you've had in the past, have they kept up their
certification?
Yeah, exactly. So that is a tough situation. I feel for you, Dawn.
Well, and I do want to say that I am going to have a conversation with the city that our young people get to, if they would need to pay for the training, that they would get it refunded 100% if the pool didn't open. And then again, so, I'm in conversation with some other pools around that we could maybe pool lifeguards. So if one or some do not open or they open late, that if we train lifeguards for this year only, to forget the territorial issues, and maybe we can have a pool of lifeguards everywhere from, Treasure Island to the YMCA to Lake City, and see if we could, pool those lifeguards and then keep them employed all summer long. And I mean, I know most people like to be outside, but they may not have, the best of all that in the summer. So, but then the drawback is you can't always guarantee weather either. So sometimes they can't work if there's bad weather or, we have lightning or something. So yeah, it's a difficult situation, but we'll work through it the best we can.
I know you will. Any other comments or questions for Dawn while she's here with us?
No, thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome. Okay, thanks.
Have a good evening. Well, other than the succession plan, do the three of us have anything else that we'd like to talk about in our other 2.6 other issues, personnel? Holly, do you have anything? All right. Well, then I won't keep you. We'll, oh, you're good. Okay, good. Thanks. So we'll go ahead then and adjourn for this evening, and, let's just keep in touch and we'll work on that succession plan. I'm excited that we'll be able to move forward on that, and good evening. See you in a little bit.
Hang on, Pam, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
So for the recommendation, just some learning questions about how this all works. So Dawn had recommended to change from a C to a B category. Is that something then that is brought back to the board that's voted on, or is that just something how does that work?
Dawn, are you still here?
Sorry, yes, I am. You know what? I don't know if this is something that the full board needs to look at. I mean,
okay.
To be honest, Carson would probably be the best one because he's been taking things to the board that didn't used to go to the board. And I know that you approved the non-classified terms and conditions. So because you did that, but then you're going to have to, anytime a job changes, you guys are going to be voting on it every single board meeting. So to me, that sounds cumbersome. I would just go with your recommendation and just move them. Otherwise, any turn we reband a job, your board is going to be looking at that every single board meeting. And I'm hoping that we are rebanding, because that is important, that we're making sure that we're maximizing resources and revenue as much as possible. And sometimes we don't reevaluate jobs, and not that people don't have enough to do, but things change and they become modern, and we don't always reevaluate positions. So this is important to do. So maybe as a board, you want to look at how often do you want to look at this stuff? Every time someone leaves a job and a job is rebanded, I'm hoping we're doing that on a routine basis. You know, because sometimes they were going to move down, and then you would be saving additional money. So
Why don't we make sure that that conversation happens at our next personnel meeting? Maybe we need a little rebanding 101.
Yes.
So I'll ask Karsten to talk about that in our April personnel meeting and just kind of give us a little background. And maybe the four of us then can discuss how we want to proceed with rebanding positions, because that has recently come up. We've rebanded several positions in the recent past. And so maybe having a really good ability to wrap our heads around that, because it is cumbersome, Dawn, when you continually bring it back to the board for every position that's been rebanded. But I do know that we look at positions on a regular basis, at least every 2 or 3 years, to make sure that we're in compliance.
Right.
I think Bjorklund routinely does that. So I think maybe just all of us needing to understand how that works and when that works might be really helpful. So I will ask Karsten to put that on our agenda for April.
You may just want to ask if it's okay if once a job is rebanded, it could just move to the category that the point system has put it into. Because again, you don't want to keep people thinking, oh gosh, now I have to reband this. It's going to have to go back to personnel. Then it's going to have to go to school board. Then I can't hire anybody. I can't post it. The process again takes a long time, but yet the conditions of employment are already set up for a point system. So maybe they just move to the category that the new assigned points have given that position itself. It's just a suggestion. I mean, you guys can do, but on our end, it would expedite and give us that flexibility to hire the best person possible and give them the pay if the responsibilities have increased.
It would help us to know then legally we're staying within what's expected and
Right.
how we hire people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
It
if we
makes
have that
sense.
language, the common language of it was rebanded, this was the scoring, this is how, if it's all fluid language, then it's not going to need to be a board thing,
Right.
potentially.
Right. So I'm looking down the road. We maybe make small steps, and then you can just plug people into the banding and the grading as you move positions and they become more fine-tuned. We don't know what any of us are going to look like after COVID is over, and we may find their positions have changed dramatically. And maybe we look at those, but as things happen throughout the year, we don't want that not to be done because the process is cumbersome. It needs to be done correctly. So, and these already outline a point system. And I know Karsten's been working on that and trying to move that forward. We've done an excellent job of moving our job descriptions and our grading and banding forward. We've got some work to do, but we've come a long ways. So.
Agreed. Thank you, Dawn. That was a really great explanation,
Yeah,
but I
thank you.
wrote it down for April. So I will let Karsten know that is something that we'd like to learn a little bit more about too. So good. Anything else, ladies? All right, grab a snack. Oh no, who's on operations? Jennifer, you have to eat during a meeting. So Holly and I can go grab some dinner and we'll see you back here at 6. I will call this meeting adjourned. It's 4:29. Thanks, ladies. See you soon. Thank you, Dawn.
Is this tied together with you, Aaron and Chris? Is this together? So I know Aaron has to be somewhere, so why don't we start with Aaron first, and then Dawn then can fill in if she has to go, and Chris is here too. So
Perfect.
and Alan. So.
All right, so my name's Erin Augustine, and I'm the Youth and Family Program Coordinator with Red Wing Community Ed. And in the past, I was also the Live Healthy Red Wing Coordinator, and this is kind of how this Nature Play project got started. I'm hoping you all had the chance to read the long, but I tried to make it brief, kind of background history on this program because it has changed and grown a lot since we first received the grant in 2019. But I heard that Twin Bluff was looking for a playground, and so we thought maybe we can move the location of our proposed Nature Play project to Twin Bluff to kind of help fill that need in the meantime until a more permanent and larger scale playground could get built. So the Nature Playground or Nature Play area is kind of how I refer to it, would be just very simple and very nature-based elements. So no like swings or slides or anything. We're thinking more hollow logs that kids can crawl through, loose parts so kids can build forts, just use their creativity to kind of manipulate the area, maybe have some wildflower planting so kids could learn about natural plants and those kinds of things. And then we found some other fun elements on a website that offers nature play items and nature play parks. So there's things like magnifying stations and balancing stations and even an ant farm or a root farm. So you can plant things in these little panels that are see-through and you can see the roots growing. So just fun things to help kids have a playground to play on, but have it be more natural. And maybe the thing that you guys are more interested in is the fact that this is all grant funded. So we have all the funds for it and the school district won't have to put any money into this project. We do ask that they would help with the installation. And Alan and Kevin had said that they can make that work because they have some equipment. And since it's a small scale project, it won't take too much time or too much effort or too much like bigger things. So we'll just need to like dig some holes, roll around some logs, carry in some heavier items, but that's about it as far as installation goes. So no money from the school district, which I think is a big plus. And then the kids will have a playground to kind of tide them over until we can get a more permanent thing in place. Something else that I love about this project is that it's really community focused. So back when Live Healthy was around, we worked with a community group to kind of get their input and see what they would want in this project. And I also did some really low-tech surveys with Kids Junction and other daycare centers in town to see what kids would like to see in their own nature play area. And kids really loved the hollow tunnels and straw bales enough. I didn't think that would be a big winner, but it was. They loved the weather station idea. So they were into kind of the science STEM side of it too, which I thought was really neat. So yeah, so now we're just working in kind of the design phase. I'm meeting with our resident design team on Thursday, and we're going to meet on site at Twin Bluff to kind of go through some of our ideas and run through the budget and see what we can purchase. And I guess what I'm asking of the operations committee tonight is to make a recommendation to the full school board to approve this project so we can start purchasing things and making things more concrete. But do you guys have any questions that I wasn't able to cover with my little presentation or any of the background info that I sent?
Anybody have any questions?
Aaron, I know you and I have talked about it too, but there have been a lot of things that have been floating my way lately. So let's talk, and this might help the board too. Let's talk a little bit about age groups, because I think that that's which age group is this most appropriate for? All, some, none?
I think it could be appropriate for a wide variety of age groups. We're able to make the items at different heights, so some things can be low to the ground for the little kiddos, some things can be up a little higher. Nothing is going to be high enough where we'd have to worry about a fall risk. So everything is going to be pretty low to the ground as far as that goes, but it will be able to be manipulated and moved around. So it could be appealing to older kids who want to like build forts or kind of make their own games up and move around maybe the tree cookies and the stumps and things like that. And we're also hoping to make it intergenerational for the people of the community too, who want to use it in the summer or after school time, to have some things that like grandparents and grandkids could do together.
Okay. Arlen?
Yeah, just, I guess they're both related. How long a commitment do we need to make as a district for this being available for this project? I mean, is it a 10-year agreement or 5 years? And I'm not 100% sure where we're looking at putting this and what happens if we have a need to use that space. I guess I'm very much behind the project. I just don't want to tie up land we may need for something else.
Yep, I think as far as a commitment, and this can be kind of, Kevin and Alan can jump in on this too. Initially, it would be a commitment of installing things, and then it would be a small commitment of just maintaining the space. They are natural elements, so they'll need to be replaced a little more often than, say, plastic or metal parts of a traditional playground. And we didn't talk about a specific like 10 or 15 year commitment or contract, anything like that. But these things will be fairly movable. There will be a few things that will probably need to be cemented into the ground, but everything else can pretty much be picked up and moved if needed. So if you guys wanted to move towards more of a natural playground on a larger scale, then these elements could be blended into that. Or if you needed that space for something else, we could move the elements more or less to a different area to keep using them. Does that sound
Arlen,
about right?
I know, and Arlen, I think you may be asking a question specifically where, when I had met with Aaron, we talked about putting it to the spot that's between where the teachers park and the building. There's that green space that's available right there. We talked about it's a high enough spot. It's not something that's a lower spot, so we would have to worry about water hanging in the area. So tentatively, Arlen, that's what Aaron and I talked about for placement.
And just so you know, if I could speak, when we first wrote the grant, it was for a temporary natural playground area. So when we were going to have it at Memorial, it was going to be up for a very short time. There was not an intent at that point to have it up for a long length of time, but it could be. It could be up for a long time. So it was negotiable. I think the resident committee on the East End was not happy with that one component, that it would not be up for very long. Aaron, if I could speak to, their desire was to have people enjoy it a little bit longer than the temporary amount of time we were going to have it up based on the grant. So.
Chris, so this is the upper level of I call it the upper level. You said where teachers park, is there some down on the bottom? And so between the building and the parking lot.
Right, there's a place, Arlen, where the drive came through now next to the building, so it's that spot right there.
You got Karsten, then Alan.
Yeah, Chris, this question is primarily for you. Do you view this in addition to a traditional playground or instead of a traditional playground?
This would be in addition to, Carson, because as I'm thinking about it, even when I begin to talk about the playground proposal too, I keep thinking in terms of stations. How many places can we have for students to play in an area that has something like a natural playground or climbing? So this would be in addition to.
Thank you.
Alan?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about with a natural playground. Of course, we're going to have upkeep and things of that nature on it. And I haven't had a chance to share with the admin team, but I did have a group reach out within the city of Red Wing that would like to help us in some way, shape, or form. Just because of COVID related, it's a church group. So I'm trying to think of ways that they could help within these COVID times. And this might be one of these things where they could help us maintain this playground as we move forward if we do put it in. I just wanted to share that a little bit with you.
Good idea. Jennifer.
Assuming this is passed by the board, is there a timeline put together as to when it will be put in?
Can I kind of go with that, Aaron?
Go
So with the proposal for the other playground, a traditional playground, I just wanted to give you an update that I met with city staff at the site and talked to them about their commitment to joining together to help us create or have this happen. With that meeting came not more or less a monetary problem. It was more of a timeline problem. If, because they asked me what the commitment would be to have that we would like to have this playground done. And I stated we would like the first day of school, September 7th. So that was kind of, it wasn't a deal breaker by any means, but that was kind of, because they got a lot of projects they want to do this winter, and we kind of come up quickly with this on them. So some of the things that I talked to them about was, and we discussed with Aaron and some of the others, that if we couldn't have that traditional playground done at that time, we'd at least have the natural playground to start with, and finishing up the other ones. So that's kind of a timeline.
Okay, Arlen?
Yeah, I know liability, we're covered on insurance different ways with other playgrounds in our school, but I guess I got a little bit of concern with this natural playground because it's not engineered per se. If you got that log and a child runs over to the log and hits their head on the log, they could be more likely to be injured on this natural park than they are the expensive high dollar systems we got. Where are we at on liability insurance for something like this? Do we need to check with our carrier?
I can somewhat answer that, Arlen, because, well, Jackie is here. Jackie, actually, I contacted Jackie not long after we started talking about this, and I did ask about liability. And Jackie, I think you said something, the height wasn't a concern so much with this, that we would be covered. However, as I'm listening to it, what does it mean to have things movable? Does that kind of change things?
We would have liability like we would for any of our other playgrounds if the district can be found at fault or negligent. So we would have to probably have good supervision on the playground to make sure that the kids are playing with it properly. But as for kids getting injured, we would only have a liability risk if we were somehow negligent in the upkeep of the items, or they weren't properly secured if they're supposed to be secured, things like that, or if there wasn't what the insurance company would deem or proper supervision.
Kevin?
And since I'll just jump in real quick, sorry. Nature-based playgrounds are somewhat new, so it's kind of in a different realm than the traditional playgrounds, but I can talk to my not coworker, but my partner on this project. She works at the U of M. So I can talk to her and see what stuff she can find as far as liability and other playgrounds like this that she's worked on, and I can send that out to whoever needs it. I don't know who I'd send it to, I guess, but.
Okay.
Jackie.
Okay.
Kevin?
And I was just going to add that for the liability piece and upkeep, we would just add a preventive maintenance thing, just like we do all our other playgrounds. So once a month, they go out and inspected and logged, and anything deficiencies we find are corrected right away. So.
Okay. This question I have, since we're we're talking about the two playgrounds, before we get into the next one, so we're talking about this, where's the other traditional one going to be being considered to be located?
So you know where the Peace Garden is in front of the Twin Bluff School there? It would be next to the Peace Garden. And the city is currently kind of laying out the layout of it that would be the spot where we could tie in drainage from that playground to that pond there. So they're kind of laying it in there, and they haven't given us the plot yet of it yet, but that was kind of our thinking.
Just a question on that. So we're having kids cross the road, the people driving into them? Am I right on that? Well, Peace Park Garden's right in front of the school, correct?
Correct.
So the kids got to cross the driving area where people are still driving through to go to the playground during school. Am I right?
They would. There is a crosswalk too there, but yeah, they would.
And Jim, we currently have a situation where the kids do in fact have to cross, but the recess monitors are always careful. But that does have to happen. But it's not busy during that time. But they do have to cross the drive.
Okay. Has there been any talk of or need to close that during certain hours of the day for people not to drive in, since you have parking lots around there?
We hadn't considered it, Jim, because it still continues to get used across the day because parents still pick up kids, drop things off. I would say we haven't considered because, quite honestly, it's been safe. It's been safe.
Okay.
Now, the only other thing I would think, Jim, there is if we did close it off, that would be a emergency vehicle type thing. If we had a fire alarm or something, I don't know how that would work there.
I understand. Just a question, since we have land all around to the west or north there. So.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I just would say thank you. I love this idea, and thank you for thinking of the school district to donate this grant to us. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Nice work, Aaron.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, thanks for letting me jump in your meeting for a little bit and considering this project. I feel like it'll be a really good partnership between the school district and the community, and we'll get a lot more use than our original location. So I think it's a win-win all around.
Yep, sounds like a good project.
Brings some uniqueness to the community that we'll have some visitors too. So we're hoping. So.
Great. Okay, so I'm all done and I'm gonna head out to my other meeting. And thank you guys once again very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Buildings and ground projects. Next thing on the agenda. You want to go into Chris's the rest of the playground?
Right,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
And
Yep. Go ahead. Mike, I jumped ahead.
Okay, so Jim, you had asked a question earlier about placement of, this next playground, of course, is a much bigger endeavor, price, everything. So I shared with you in an email the proposal, but I think I'll be able to bring it up on the screen and I'll just walk through that as well. What we didn't say on there though is the placement of the playground. But like Kevin had said, it's going to be out by the Peace Garden. That's the plan to put it for a couple of reasons. Number one, we want it to be more of a community-based use, that more people would use it if we're out in front. And secondly, it's just placement. I mean, if we do put it out behind the school, sometimes in the spring, that area is really soggy. I mean, we've had times where that drain has blocked up on the way west end, and it looked like a small lake back there. So Alan and I kind of walked around, and we landed on the front of the school at this point right now for where we would put it. So that would answer your question, Jim, about how we landed on that. So I am going to just present, and I just want you to know a huge thanks to Jane Boating and Alan Gaylor for putting this together, because it's an awful lot, and there is a template. I mean, we used a lot of the information that we got from the Sunnyside Playground, but it has been putting a lot together in a short amount of time. So option A is going big. Option B is not as big. I'm kind of laying that out for you right now. So I'm going to present the funding plan. Okay, and you should have it shared with you right now. Everyone has it shared? Okay. So these are the plan options. And as I said, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through this, but option A is a play structure for ages 5 through 12 out in front with a poured service, a variety of features. to put it quickly here, it would look similar to what's at Sunnyside, at least in size. There are some options that we could do to make it more appropriate for an older age group, but just for the purpose of the board considering what it would look like, that's what it would look like out in front of the school. And you can see right there, the cost for that is $185,000, and I'll go through a breakdown as to how we arrived at that number. Other things that we also considered too, and this is something that has been talked about at Twin Bluff too. We were never really comfortable with putting a big structure behind the building, but we do have some space to perhaps put together, this is what I said, going big, perhaps a fitness circuit for some older students. It would be closer to the building, just features for arm and leg strength, monkey bars, a climbing feature to it. This would also be appropriate perhaps for cross training for sports teams that practice in the area. And that would be, let's say, in the ballpark of $35,000. Another area up by the Bluff, I've seen Doug Toivonen have FIAD classes where they've done Frisbee golf and the kids have an absolute ball. So I was thinking, is there some way that, and this would be for the older students too, which would actually work. It's a little further from the building. The kids would have to walk there. So up on that bluff, perhaps some Frisbee golf standards, perhaps putting together a trail that can be used safely during recess time. And that's not nearly as expensive, but that's anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. So that's option A. And in my head, what that's doing is it's accommodating our younger students and our older students in grades 5 and 6. The other option, of course, is option B, and that would just be the play structure in front of the building. And then perhaps we would have to phase in those other things that I was talking about over time. If you take a look at the next item on there, the Twin Bluff playground proposal, and this is for option B. Alan had made reference to the ground preparation landscape. Alan, that's what we were talking, that would be the city's contribution, correct?
Yeah, and I could see that being a little bit more. I think that's kind of on the low side, but number-wise, I would be thinking more 60,000 at least.
Is that in kind, Alan?
Pardon me?
For the Red Wing, City of Red Wing, that'd be in kind?
Yeah, that's doing all the prep work. There's engineering in there. Of course, the concrete's the big one. And they would be doing the actual digging to put the drainage into the pond. So, I'm thinking 60s even a little bit low.
I'd say the city is willing to put in the concrete.
Yeah. So the city, they're willing to do the work. Like I said, the monetary part of it is not the issue. It's more the timeline is where they're really having a hard time making that commitment. I put together a proposal for Rick Moskwa and sent it off to him, and he is proposing that to the city council tonight at their meeting. So we'll hear more back on them, what their contributions could possibly be.
Great. Sorry about that. Alan, Kevin, did you have something?
No, I was just going to agree with Alan that I think the number should be more like the 60,000 range.
Yeah.
And the numbers that I picked were numbers from Sunnyside, and the number that I had was 38, so I even went a little low on that as well. So, okay, so looking at this, so, you can see the other funding details too, the amounts. So the whole thing, obviously, 185,000 is where we are right now, but there's another consideration too, as far as fencing. And Alan, I guess that's something that Jane Boating and I talked about too, because it is a relatively busy stretch of road out in front of Twin Bluff. Would it make sense to put some kind of fencing, even if it's just like a half fencing And that's something that you and I can talk about too. So that would be another consideration as well.
And we talked about that. Yes. I think that we could put something all the way along that sidewalk, just to keep the kids safer, whether it be a ball that goes towards the street or kids running out there. I think that we would want a permanent fixture instead of like we have now.
The orange snow fences. I know.
Yeah.
I know. All right. Moving along. So here's what, and so if you can see where it says the funding details, Red Wing Public Schools, 90,000, City of Red Wing, but again, that number is low as well. For us, we do have some fundraising sources, and these numbers that you see, these were the numbers that Jane Boating felt as though they could go to these funders and ask for these amounts. And keep in mind that these amounts were just donated a couple years ago for Sunnyside. So she did remove some of the people off of that, or some of the groups off of that, thinking that they maybe would not be able to do this again a second time. We have a fundraiser coming up and here at Twin Bluff, and we felt as though 25,000 would be a reasonable amount that we can contribute. And that's also in addition to what the other schools, I know that Burnside just finished doing an Apex fundraise. Their contributions are actually going towards a Twin Bluff playground. And that's the way that they couched it to parents. And they got some pretty good support for that too. But as you can see, there's a list of the different funders that they thought that perhaps they could get dollars from. Jane has a letter prepared to send out to these groups, but we were just kind of waiting on perhaps some more numbers from both the city and the school district. So that's my presentation. Does anybody have any questions about anything on there?
I'll start. Go back up to your budget there a little bit. I just want to make sure we're clear as we go forward with the board here. Go up to the top part. So ground preparation and landscape, is that this part of what the city of Red Wing is going to be doing? Am I correct on that? Okay. So that's in kind. Pardon me?
That's in kind, and the other reason it's a little bit higher is they're also doing all of the engineering work for us on it.
Wonderful, perfect.
Civil work.
Appreciate it. And poured surface, is that part of their in kind too? You talked about concrete? No?
They would just do the concrete, Jim, and we would have to do the poured surface. That would be the responsibility of the school district.
So really right now we're looking at playground installation and poured surface. So really 150,000 plus fencing, if I'm correct.
Correct.
For some type of funding. And nothing that we can use that we have those LCR, whatever they call it, I'll butcher it, LCFM or whatever. I know we did that those dollars are not available for this.
No.
No, because it's new, something new. We can't use that for it.
But it's a question to ask. So,
yep.
So in essence, we need apparently ballpark 150,000 to start the project, and then look at the fencing now or later. Am I correct on that?
I would say that's correct.
So our fundraising goal is up to 150,000. 70 is a fundraising goal, but funding is up to 150. Okay, just so we're kind of clear on because really, City of Red Wing's not going to donate money. They'll do, like you said, donate in kind engineering costs and all that.
And just to be, when we did Sunnyside, they had a little bit longer time to fundraise. Right. So, that's something to think about since we're trying to be quick with this. So it's kind of.
So are we trying to do it in calendar year 2021 yet? Or are we looking at 2022 then? Which one is more advantageous for us?
Well, Alan, you and I had talked about fall of next school year.
Correct.
21-22.
I think that's when we first started this discussion. I think that's what we were the goal we were trying to reach, being that we're K through 5 school there.
I think you might want to add in there too, that's your goal, but when we talked to the city, we said if it needed to go a little longer, we've got to be flexible with them too, because we're asking them to do it on really short notice.
Agreed. Alan, and I guess this is kind of, would you say that, obviously the city is going to be able to present you with some more details and specifics after their meeting tonight?
Correct.
Okay.
In all fairness too, if we didn't do it till 2022, you're really looking at a lot better options, especially fundraising, the city time, that kind of stuff. But
you mean in the fall of 22, 23?
It'd be 2020. No, yeah. Not this coming school year, but the following school year beginning.
Would it be something to consider summer of? I'm talking you're talking calendar year or school years. I'm talking calendar years here. Summer of 2022, because right now you're looking at 6 months. If it doesn't go in 6 months, it's going to go in 14, 15 months then. So if that can't go in 6 months, you might as well look at the summer of 2022. Just throwing it out there.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. I think it's ideally we get the money quick. We'd order all the equipment, install it in the fall of 2021, but I think realistically it's probably a summer 22 project, but we'll shoot for fall of 21.
I think that might be advantageous for us to look at 2022 summer to get everything and not rush the city and get them to but we'll see what you come up with it tonight. So it just sounds, you're talking March now, September, school starts again in 6 months. So do we want to do it during school? That's the other question. School year, do you want to wait until the school is out for the summer?
Well, Jim, here's what I would say. Could we do it when the kids are here? There's always a risk of, big machinery moving around when kids are here. I suppose ideally, because my guess is it might, I don't know if it would block a parking lot or drop off or anything. So, I suppose we could, but I do know that, in conversations with some of the people that did the fundraising for the Sunnyside Playground, I'd say their biggest, they're very positive and they want to get going. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. However, they did make mention of the turnaround time being really fast to raise those kinds of funds.
Right.
I think with the area that we're looking at too, I don't think we want to be doing excavating and stuff out there with students around.
Harlan.
Yeah, much as I'd like to see us have a playground in place by this fall, I just think trying to rush this thing through is not going to make a good project. It's going to limit us fundraising wise. I guess the big thing is if somebody's there with the check to do it all right now, I think it's doable this fall. But if we have to do some fundraising and see where the dollars are and different things and try to get it, we're out a couple more months at least. We're in March, so we're looking at early summer at the earliest to have the funds available to even consider doing something. Is the way it's looking to me. That's just, and I'm just not really in favor of just going ahead and doing it without having the funds in place. So I'm of the opinion we should work towards this, start working on it, get the word out. This is what we want to do. Start finding the funds to make it happen. And I think there are some potentials that it could be open in the summer of 2022 and possibly equipment doing some of the work when we're, I guess spring break would be too early. That would be wet and mucky if it wasn't froze. So unless we could get excavation done this fall sometime during a break, MEA week or something for 2 days. I don't know how many days they need to do the groundwork. Concrete work doesn't entail lots of big equipment running around once it's excavated. But I'm very supportive of the project, but I'd rather see us take our time and do it right. So whatever it takes to get it done right.
Hey, I'd like to jump in real quick and just remind everyone that Arlen Dierks has been an advocate for a middle school playground for years. I think ever since he's been on the board. So Arlen, I'm sorry it's taken so long, but at least we're making progress.
Thank you. I don't want to, we aren't there yet. I just felt there's a need, and some things come the way you think they should go, and some things you're wrong, and some things never come even though you're right. So just all we can do is put out ideas and see where needs are. Thank you.
I think we're on. Jennifer, are you in consensus too with us to realistically look at summer of 2022 to give us our fundraising efforts a little time to get some legs under it, get the word out there, and get people involved? And I know the group wants to go, like Chris said, but they're also cognizant of the fact that it's a short time frame.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I understand the reason for that. It's disappointing because the whole idea was to provide a playground to the K-6 students that will be there this next year. But if we have the natural playground, that will help with a piece of that. So, yeah, I think we need to do the project well. So whatever it takes for that.
Well, and Jennifer, here's what I would say too, and I don't, I kind of threw a lot of things out of there with the plan options too, but, and if there's a way that I could somehow think my way around at least starting to set up things behind the school for the older kids too, because there's a need for them as there are for the younger kids too. I mean, maybe I kind of flip my plan there and maybe do some of those things earlier. So.
Yeah, I like that idea. Maybe we could do the Frisbee golf earlier and some of those other things and wait on the larger playground. That's a good idea.
Okay. Hey, Chris, can I add one more thing? Just as you do that playground, Frisbee and all that stuff, make sure we keep ADA in mind, because you remember quite a few years back, we wanted to do a classroom way up in the hills and we couldn't do it because of ADA, sadly, but just something you want to keep in the back of your head.
Yep, good point. Okay, is that clear as mud for you there, Alan, Kevin, Chris? Okay. Anything else on that? All right, buildings and ground projects then. Thanks, Chris.
I was waiting to push present so I didn't mess up Chris again. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen now. What this one is replacing the ventilation and makeup air system. It's called a makeup air unit for the high school metal shop area. Over the years, this original one, and it's costing us more and more every year just to try to keep it going. So we went out for bid, and on February 2nd, we got 2 bids back, one from Cool Air Mechanical out of the Twin Cities for, excuse me, $65,000. And then Savander Heating here in Red Wing was $47,660. These are LTFM funds since it's a replacement of an existing unit. And we'd be looking at doing this mid-June, give or take a little bit depending on the weather. So we're recommending going with Savander Heating for $47,660. And at this point, I'd like to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
What does this unit do? And what happens if we don't do it? I guess I don't understand what the maintenance is that we're doing on the existing air exchanger. And
it's the heat. It does the heating for the shop area, and it also does the makeup air for all the welding hoods in the shop area. So it kind of does double duty. So if it goes out, we don't have heat in that space.
So is it like a rooftop HVAC type of thing, something similar to that then?
It is. Yes, it is, Arlen. You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Okay. I think it's just part of that whole plan of getting different things in that shop area too, and keeping that moving through the plans. And I mean, that was built and probably put on there 25 years ago. Am I right on that? 25?
It is 26 now. It's original.
So.
And as any of you know, anything we have on a roof doesn't last as long as equipment inside the building. So,
As I mentioned, I lived for many, many years in a house that had a flat roof, so I know what happens to flat roofs. So, to a degree. So, Arlen?
Oh, I was just going to say, after hearing that, rooftop HVAC units usually have what I know of them, probably around a 20-year life expectancy, sometimes less, sometimes more. So after hearing that, it's time. I'm just surprised we didn't put it into our referendum a few years back, because we were hitting the 20-year mark then. But that doesn't matter. It needs now. Let's get on with it. We got 4 or 5 more years.
we've got 4 more of them up there that are still doing okay. So we're crossing our fingers on those. Those have not been a problem yet.
Cross your fingers and cross your eyes.
I like to get, as you know, I like to get every ounce of use out of something before we replace it. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'll add that Jackie likes to get every dollar out of every project too. Jackie, a question for you. Is there a chance that this could qualify for federal COVID reimbursement?
It possibly could. Kevin and I could work together to put in an application, but since we've already gone out to bid, well, we might be okay because we've only gotten bids so far, but there is an equipment approval process we need to go through on this. And we'd have to somehow prove that it's making the air more, we're running it through so it's fresher air. Mm-hmm.
And we wouldn't be able to do that because we're putting it back into exact same CFM that we're taking out. So.
Just had to ask a question.
Will this be more efficient than the existing unit?
Maybe a little bit just because of the newer motors in it, but the base unit itself is the same.
So we're not going to be able to tap XL Energy for energy efficiencies out of it or anything?
No.
Just so we're clear here, then, you want to apply for the grant or not apply for the grant? Because it sounds like if we want to apply for the grant, we cannot bring to the board tonight the recommendation to do it if we're still going out for bids only. You tell me.
We'd have to be careful too because there's lead time on buying the equipment. If we could get it in then before school even starts, I'm not sure.
So the requirements for the grant would just describe the equipment, where it's located, explain the purpose, explain how it is necessary as a result of the public health emergency, provide an estimate of the equipment.
That's going to be the catch right there as far as the need because of the emergency. I'm not sure if it would qualify.
Okay. All right, I think everybody, I haven't heard from Jennifer. Jennifer, you okay with this? All right, I am too. So, and Arlen is too. So, we recommend to the board then.
Okay, perfect.
You want to go on?
Yep. Should I just roll into technology then?
You still have 2 other topics in that list.
You got soccer parking lot and Sunnyside wall repair project update. Anything on that?
I see the soccer. What was the question on Sunnyside?
It was just in here. Provide board approved the work. Maybe it's just an information for us then.
Is it the freezer project, Kevin?
It's a wall project there. We approved it.
I didn't put that on the agenda, sorry, but yes, I just forwarded to Jackie this morning. the contract with Red Wing Construction to do that work this summer. So yes, we're all on board with that. And that one's ready to go.
Great. Okay.
The next piece in there was the soccer. We're just informational for you guys, basically. I'll present it again for those who are viewing.
What is this project supposed to cost?
Which project?
The soccer field parking. That's where we're at, right?
That's where we're at. We haven't run the numbers for that piece of it yet. Gotta get this out of here so you can see it. Okay, there we go. The city engineering has agreed to do all the engineering work and spoke with Public Works. Actually, Alan and I met with Public Works to look at this project and the Twin Bluff big playground. And they're doing the engineering civil work to make sure that we have the drainage to the retention pond that's just to the north of the lot there. And Public Works is willing to come in with their bulldozers and flatten it out so we have the proper grade and subgrade cut. And then from that point on, we would just be buying Class 5 crushed rock, and the Buildings and Grounds Department would be leveling off the crushed rock, which we would probably buy from a local person such as Lumens or somebody like that. So it's a relatively low cost other than just a crushed rock we'd have to buy.
So just help me out here. I want to know exactly where is Goodhue Street?
Okay, where we are, if you look at what's on the screen there, I don't know, can you see my mouse moving around?
Yeah.
Okay, this says soccer field number 1, the net.
Yep.
So this road here is the one that goes back around the north side of the baseball fields and all the soccer fields.
Okay.
And right now we have a gate that you can see right here to keep people from going back to the solar gardens, which is behind it. Yep. So as you come by, what we would do is we would just create this as the entrance to it. And we would actually be moving this back a little bit further even. We were hoping to get maybe another half dozen spots out of it. We'll be in the 40 to 50 range when we're done. 50 we could get in there if everybody parked perfectly, but obviously there aren't going to be lines on a crushed rock, so people will be a little more scattered than normal. So that's that follow where it is. And if you know where the cross-country track is, they come running down here now, and they would just be going right behind it. Here's where that track goes, if you know where that is.
Yep. So how long before you get a request to pave it?
That would have to come back to the school board if we pave it, because you'd be talking a lot of money, and this is being put in as a temporary lot. That's what the city is actually one of the things they'll be talking about. Whereas Public Works is being able to help us with some of this stuff, and engineering doing the same. We have no preconceived notions to turn this into an asphalt one. That would be a big ask.
Jennifer or Arlen, any questions?
I guess I'm right with you, Jim. That was first thought. When's it going to come back to us now to pave this project and stuff? Red Wing's gone ahead and decided they don't want any of their alleys in the community with crushed rock. Everything's paved, and I guess I'm real concerned. We're getting by what we're doing now with our soccer fields. I don't want to see us go overboard spending a lot. If it's a minimal amount to put in crushed rock parking lot, I'm okay with that, but I just don't want to have any commitment to spending a bunch more money for a paved parking lot for the soccer fields. We got to stop the buck somewhere.
Right, and that was everything we've done with the city thus far is it's a temporary parking lot. It's not even a permanent parking lot, because once this gets replatted, if the school district does something different back, there's so many what ifs. We're right close to a major road. There's a lot of reasons they really at first weren't too up on this, but it is a safety reason we want to do that. There's a lot of cars back there and kids running between the cars on the road, and people just park everywhere back there when there's soccer games. So that's why they're on board with us making it a temporary crushed rock lot in the name of safety, basically. And you're right, it's only going to be a couple thousand, few $1,000s at the most worth of crushed rock in an art time.
I've been back there during some of those games, and I think this is a great idea. I think it's a perfect solution, having it temporary and not costly.
Sounds good. Anything more on the projects other than technology?
Nothing else on this project. We can move the technology when you're ready.
All righty.
Okay, just an update on the HBC lease that we've been working on with the tower and all of the owned, or the fiber that the school district has gotten from them over the years. We had our attorney, as you know from the last meeting, review it, and he redlined it. We got that to HBC. I just spoke to them a couple days ago, and they're fine with all the changes our attorney made to the contract. So the contract they're good with. They asked me to work with them on memorializing how many strands of fiber, exactly where on the map they would be. So we need to put our heads together because they've been giving this stuff to us over the past 15, 16 years, something like that. So that's kind of where we're at on the fiber and the tower lease.
Okay. Any questions?
The next, is there any other questions on that? Otherwise, I'll roll into the last piece here. Sorry.
Okay, go on.
Okay. The last one is just kind of a FYI that this summer we're looking, I'm pricing out right now, replacing the sound system in hub to hall, which was on our capital list. Was on our list for works for next year out of LTFM funding. I've got one quote back. I'm asking for another one because it's an expensive project, obviously, to replace the concert hall's sound system. So I was just going to let you know that hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have some information to share with you and see if we want to move forward with that one. Part of the problem, just to give you quick here, is part of the problems with, like, we're not doing the cafeteria and the little theater yet this year because I just can't afford all three in 1 year. But the FCC has changed the frequencies our wireless mics are on, for instance. They're all cell phone frequencies now. So if you've been into, for instance, the cafeteria and have a meeting and all of a sudden the sound system cuts out, it's because somebody's LTE phone is doing something and it's blocking the signal. So that's just part of it. But here again, everything in that auditorium is original equipment from 26 years ago.
Okay.
So that was just informational that I'll be coming back with you more information. And that's it, unless there's more questions.
Run that about the HBC thing again. Run that by me one more time. You're talking about the first thing you talked about?
Excuse me, you're soft on my computer. How was that?
The first thing you talked about in the technology part on the
okay.
Tell me again about that.
Okay. At the last meeting we had talked about, we had our attorney review the contract. Again, he redlined a bunch of items. I shared that with HBC, and their attorneys have now gone over to like the third time, I think now. And they're fine with everything that's in the contract that our attorney made. So we're at the point where they need to memorialize how many strands of fiber go into each school and where on a map they're actually located in the city streets and right-of-ways and all that. And they asked me to help them with that since they've been little by little giving this to us over about a 15-year period.
And if I could summarize too in a different way, is that this has to do with the Hbc Tower Lease. And in exchange for letting HBC use our land for their tower, then they would give us, technology, as Kevin described, for a period of time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Thanks. All right. Thanks, Kevin. Alan? Brent, you're at the end of the meeting, but you have a few minutes yet. How does that sound?
Well, I think we're going to need more than 5. So what I'm going to ask is, do you want to shift me to next month's meeting, or how do you want me to proceed?
Is there any need for you anything you need to address before next month's meeting?
I think the only thing that I'm going to say is, when you look at the capital plan, there's a few things on there that we probably need to move quicker just because of the economy. So when you look at that list, I'm probably going to move on the convection ovens. And the reason I say that is that 1.5 years ago, food service was buying convection ovens at $14,000 a piece. They right now are at about $5,000. And that has everything to do with supply and demand. And because what we saw with COVID, and just due to equipment being so abundant right now, it's just at a good time to purchase it. And I'm just saying that because my quotes on the ovens, they are only good basically here for another 2.5 weeks. So if anything's on there, what I'd like to say is I'd like to move forward on at least purchasing some of those ovens, or at least getting them into the Requiem. And that's the reason why is a lot of the capital expenditures right now is just because it's a right time to buy. And what you have to know too is that food service, that when you look at the dish machines, the 2 dish machines themselves make up 112,000, about 113,000, and it doesn't count the install price, so probably 125,000. And they are 27, 29 years old.
Mm-hmm.
These are pieces of equipment that are very expensive to begin with. And those ones I was just kind of looking to basically get the work done this summer. So 2 of the schools will have operating equipment. But we could wait to dive into them to next time. But I would just ask for, as long as no one is opposed to it, I'd like to move forward on the convection ovens to start getting them purchased and figuring out our plan of getting them here.
I'm okay with it. How's the rest of the board on those convention ovens? Because we've been talking about them for a little bit.
And if you want me to wait, I can rebid.
Go ahead, Arlen.
I'm not sure. Do we have to okay all the different purchases for food service department, or why, or when do we step in on here as a board?
Typically, we have not asked for school board approval because it's within their budget. But we think it's good practice to routinely bring the board up to speed as far as 5 or 10 year equipment budgets. And so that's what Brent's doing today. So typically we would not need board approval, but we want to respect the process, make sure that we have the budget to pay for it.
All right. Given that information, if it's necessary for us to make a recommendation to the board, I would suggest that we just ask Brent to bring to next week's school board meeting authority to buy those items that he wants to get right away, so he gets that quote on that 2.5 or something. I don't know what anyone else thinks. I'm all behind it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I'm definitely behind it. If we do not have to bring it to the board, I would say just go ahead.
I would agree too. If that don't need to bring it there, it's nice to keep us informed, and an informed board's a good board. I get that, and I think we'll give Brent more time next meeting to go over it a little bit more.
Yep. Okay. Perfect.
So he's got to go ahead to get convection ovens all in. Is that right? I'm good with it. I just want to make sure we're clear. It's not necessary for us to prove it at this point, and they should just proceed on.
Yeah, like Carson said, it was in the budget, so I'm okay with it if everybody else is.
Okay. And that's mainly, I just wanted you guys to be in the loop because of, you can clearly see it's not a small figure, but I think we all acknowledge that 125,000 is really just the dish machines that we're looking at. So it's more of, I just didn't want it to be a sticker shock. So.
I just want it to be noted that this is information that you are purchasing these items. It's not an okay from the committee to go ahead and purchase it, because if that's the case, then we guys should be taking other action.
Right. But it's not, we're just, we're okay with him going forward.
That we are going to be getting these different items.
Yep, I agree.
All right.
Yeah. And Brent, thank you for staying for the whole meeting. And I apologize that we didn't have time for you for your full presentation.
That's okay. Next time.
Yeah, and by the way, also thanks for doing such a comprehensive plan. I know you've been regularly updating it throughout the year, and it's really appreciated.
And it doesn't, you know, and I'll say real quick if I can. I have really focused just on the next year and a half, just because there is so much uncertainty in the food side of things. We just don't know, you know, like what next year meal plans are going to be. So when you look at it, there's years where literally there's no expenditures because we're purchasing so much right now that we're kind of looking at those years of hopefully not having to spend and kind of build back fund. So.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Anything else to come before the Operation Committee tonight? Any other issues? Hearing none, we are adjourned. See you in about 15 minutes or so.
Thanks, everybody.
Ms. Tift?
Here.
And Chair is here. So all 7 school board members are here, including Superintendent Carson Anderson. We will go ahead and stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have asked Nikki Buck to share our mission statement this evening with us all.
The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you. Thank you. Our meeting agenda has been posted in the board packet. Does anybody have any changes or additions to make this evening? All right, seeing none, I will look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Bryant, so moves.
Motion or second. Jim and Anna seconded. Any other discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call vote then for the agenda, starting with Nikki Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So the agenda passes as presented. The first item on our agenda is the educational plan. As always, it is in our board packet for reference. And recognitions and upcoming events is on the agenda next. Does anybody have anything that they would like to share?
I have 2 items, Pam, to share. First of all, have February was Minnesota School Board Recognition Week. And as you know, I was out for a period of time, and so I wasn't able to recognize school board members during that time. We will be sending out these certificates to each board member, thanking you for your service to the school board. I think I know more than most people how much time that you put into the jobs, the extra phone calls, the worry about votes coming up, you know, all those kinds of things. And so on behalf of the community, I'd like to thank you for your service on the board. The second item is recognition that Sherry Johnson was awarded as the Special Education Administrator of the Year by the Minnesota Association of, or Minnesota, sorry, Administrators of Special Education group. That's a statewide group consisting of special ed administrators, and they selected Sherry as the statewide recipient. So congratulations, Sherry.
Excellent news. Thank you. Other recognitions or upcoming events? All right, seeing none, then we will move to public comment, which I have received none. Superintendent Anderson, have you received any public comment?
I did not.
Okay, so then the next item on our agenda is the resolution of non-concurrence. And I will, we have 2 people joining us this evening, and I will turn it over to you, Carson Anderson, for a little bit of background and what is happening next.
Sure. I've had the pleasure of working with Red Wing's Native American Parent Committee since I've been here. It's a group of caring and passionate individuals who are there to represent the best interests of American Indian children. This year, we have 2 co-chairs, as far as I understand, Margot Bellinger, who's on the call today, as well as Brooke McGill. And each year, the committee reviews a resolution of concurrence or non-concurrence, and it essentially indicates the parent committee's perspective as far as whether or not the school district is meeting the needs of Native American children. Generally, there is a vote of concurrence. This year, there was a vote of non-concurrence, and I can understand why. And it's really a good opportunity for us to hear directly from the parent committee, and then for us to kind of work on a plan on how to address the deficiencies that are recognized. So Margot and Tina, if we could pass it over to you, and then we'll take it from after you're done.
Tina's going to start us off, and I don't know how many of you have read the letter, but I will put the letter up on under a presentation so everybody can see the same letter, and I'll read that letter aloud. So go ahead, Tina. You're muted.
Okay, there, I got it. Okay, we want to thank you. Oh, first of all, my name is Tina Jefferson. I'm a tribal member, and I'm foster care to my grandchildren who are in the school district. We want to thank you for allowing us this opportunity to come before you today to express our long-awaited responses for our Native American children enrolled in this district. After many failed attempts since 1977, we are here to inform you that we are educating ourselves on a better system of educating our communities about our culture, heritage, history, and status within this education system. It is our goal to create an inclusive system for our Native children and their support systems. As many have fallen through the proverbial cracks, this is no longer acceptable to us. After studying the federal state statutes, we observed many factors that have gone unnoticed by the district's ability to address or implement these statutes into our education system. Therefore, we realize the importance of our involvement now and into the future. We can no longer stand back and watch our children being left behind. We ask that you work with us to create a better system with electives in Native studies and language and teachings about First Americans as required by law. We are in the beginning stages of our newly reformed Native Parent Committee. We will be working on several goals obtainable in the very near and far future to better serve the needs of our Native families and their children and broaden the understanding of what of what is needed to be done. And we thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you on these issues. Unmute.
It may take a minute for my computer to get this up. Can anybody see it?
Not yet, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time.
Okay. So more or less, this is the letter that was sent to the school board and to the state of Minnesota. So if anything, I'll just let it load and start reading right now. Red Wing School Board, and then it addresses you. This letter was addressed to you on February 17th, 2021. Pursuant to Minnesota statute, section 124D.78, section subdivision 1, the Red Wing American Indian Parent Advisory Committee, the AIPAC, is issuing a resolution of non-concurrence for the 2021 school year. This committee has voted and determined Red Wing Public Schools is not meeting the needs of American Indian students, being in compliance with guidelines set forth by the Minnesota Department of Education and the Office of American Indian Education. We submit these recommendations. 1, beginning school year 2021-2022 and each year thereafter, the HIPAC requests a written accounting for all funds available to or received by Red Wing Public Schools, either earmarked for or as a result of American Indian children being enrolled in the Red Wing Public Schools. This includes, but is not limited to, Johnson O'Malley funds, Title VI, I think it is, Title I, Indian aid, additional state or federal funding, and any grants opportunities presented to the Red Wing Public Schools concerning American Indian students. 2, beginning opening week for staff in the year 2021 and each opening week thereafter, diversity anti-bias training will be provided to all teachers and staff in the Red Wing Public Schools. Including this training opening week would help make Red Wing Public Schools comply with the Minnesota Due North Education Plan. Number 3, pursuant to Minnesota Statute, Section 124D.77, Red Wing Public Schools shall establish a plan to have American Indian teachers in the school district by school year 21-22. At a minimum, the Red Wing Public Schools shall establish a working relationship with input from American Indian community members in all academical areas. For example, art, literature, language, social sciences, agricultural, history, and etc. Including staff diversity is a priority in the Minnesota Due North Education Plan. Number 4, in place by school year 2021, the Red Wing Public School shall create a 4-credit class at the high school, including Native culture, history, and language. At a minimum. We want this Red Wing Public School teachers to establish a working relationship with all American Indian community members and or Prairie Island Indian community, and the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee has a goal to offer Dakota language as an option to German and Spanish for all students at the Red Wing High School. Number 5, the Red Wing Public School shall partner with the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee in the writing and managing of grants available to American Indian students within the Red Wing Public School. As per the Minnesota Department of Ed and OAIE guidelines, we have sent our recommendations to the OAIE and expect a written response from the Red Wing Public School Board to each of the above recommendations within 60 days of this receipt of this letter. The American Indian Parent Advisory Committee is making itself available to dialogue with the school board subcommittee who is assigned to respond to this letter. Sincerely, the Red Wing American Indian Parent Advisory Committee, Brooke Mangill, Margot Bellinger, Babs Knutson, Phil White, Tina Jefferson, Tammy Wells Garcia, Nikki Buck, Rocky Lafferty, and Angelica Bennett.
Thank you, Tina and Margot. And again, I've never had a vote of non-concurrence before, and so I'm learning, as we go. But I think Margot said it correctly that we have 60 days to respond. I'm assuming it's from February 17th, not the presentation tonight. So, I'd rather respond earlier rather than later. So I think that makes sense. What I'm going to suggest is that, you know, I write an initial draft of a response and then channel it through a committee. I don't know if it would be the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Committee or the Equity Team, perhaps a subcommittee of the board, ad hoc or regular, and then we could work with the Native American Parent Committee to kind of hash out some of the details. I do think that in general, we can and should, you know, comply with the 6 different items, but there are always details, and you know, the details is where we'll need to kind of work together collaboratively to see what makes the most sense and when. So again, that's what I'm suggesting, is that, you know, we proceed that way. And I'd really like to present this to the board, a rough draft to the board after getting, you know, collaborative work with the parent committee and others. I'd like to present it on April 5th, which would meet the 60-day timeline.
The equity team doesn't meet again or isn't scheduled to meet again until April 5th. So I think that ordinarily would be a good committee for it to go through, but in the interest of time, either that committee would need to have an additional meeting or it would have to go through someone else.
Yeah, I would guess that this is important enough to perhaps have an extra meeting, you know, before April 5th, if the board thinks that would be the logical place to take this.
Go ahead, Holly.
First of all, I'd really like to thank the advisory committee for bringing this to our attention and for asking us to be partners and asking us to do better, because we can do better. And it hurts my heart tremendously that it has got to the point of a non-concurrent feeling vote status. And in that, the things that you have recommended for us to do, I see as steps in the right direction, but I know that we can do more and we can do better. And so I'm looking forward to the partnership with you and to really get this strategically aligned with what is best, considering the community of Red Wing was founded by Native Americans and that we are visitors on the land. And I say we as a white person. And so with that history and that information and all of the knowledge that goes back to this, I want to start this in kindergarten, not just a high school class. I would like the program of studies to look at something like making it a required class that students have to go through credits for 4 credits for Native American and Dakota language and everything that encompasses the tribes around this area from past until now. I think it's that important. And the fact that Red Wing has struggled with equity work, again, hurts my heart. And I'm so proud that you are bringing this to us and that this board may have a chance to do it right. My one question I have for you is the funds that you are looking to see, do you want the past funds and how they've been spent? Which is fine. I'm just wanting to clarify, like, where have funds gone, or looking at how we're spending them now, because this is new to me too. And so I want to learn with you. So that's my question.
May I speak?
Oh, go ahead, Margot.
Carson could answer also, but I think what the committee's underlying they want to know where the money has been going and why you feel that that everything was okay before and how the money was applied in the past. So and we also want to see what is also earmarked for this year and years in the future. So just so we got an idea of what the money has been being spent on, and maybe it needs to be reapplied in a different way if it's not applied correctly. If that sounds Tina or Nikki, if that's how you perceive this also.
Not only that, but also coming from a standpoint of we'd like to see this grow and we want to help it grow, and we'd like to get grants and grant writers, and we see something that, you know, we could possibly be the model for the in communities, for a school district, on how to set a good, let's teach the history of everyone and everything, and be inclusive, and have other curriculum available for other cultures. This is just a stepping point too, because we've talked with others about theirs too, and how we can try to rectify the things that have gone wrong in the school system. And so one-sided, we need it more. It's a community. We are not just one people. We are a bunch of different people. And it'd be nice to see that culture and that brought back to the school systems. But yeah, and then as far as like the money is concerned, we just want to know how much has been coming in and where it's been going to. We as a community, we don't know if some's going to our education department, if Paul, or we don't know where all of this sits, because we have no idea who's getting what. And we know there's not a lot of money there, but we just want to be able to redirect it to the right areas so that we can,
if I could,
children can
yeah,
benefit.
Sorry, Tina.
That's okay. That's all right. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, if I could add that, you know, when I first started here, I think a lot of at the time it was called Title VII, now it's called Title VI, but a lot of that money was actually meshed with our Title I funding that serves all kids. Thankfully, Tori Campbell and Darcy Menard approached me and asked questions about how the Title VII allocation was working. And that conversation led to a lot of other conversations. And in the end, we we made significant changes in how our Title VII dollars were spent. Fast forward a little bit, the state of Minnesota added fairly significant AMI aid, or American Indian aid, which is a state source. We get about $80,000 per year now in regard to that. And it would be, I know we've shared, you know, some information, you know, previously with parent committees, but membership of those committees change, you know, with time. And I think it would be very easy for Jackie to run a report, at least since we had our last finance software conversion, which was several years ago. So we could easily run, you know, there's those reports for past years and of course any subsequent years. So that's just one, you know, and that'll be included in my response to this letter is, you know, this is what, you know, maybe we can just give you the reports right then, you know, with our response, but also make a commitment that, you know, we can provide that, you know, more routinely in the future.
I just want to add really quick, I'd be happy to do a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee in support of this, Karsten, to work on this. If, you know, the timelines of the other committees don't match up, or if there's something strategically you want to look at in terms of how you want this and how we should approach this. You gave us so many good recommendations. It's very exciting, and thank you.
And I'm super excited to hear, you know, a joint partnership, because as we talk about instituting some of these things, we're going to need your expertise and your advice on how to formulate a lot of the plan that you have envisioned. The other thing I'd want to really make sure that we're able to do is to sustain the programming. So, you know, that's where the grant writing is going to come in, and, you know, how do we take those dollars and make sure that whatever we implement initially is something that we can sustain, because we don't want this to be a 1 year and done kind of thing. This needs to be incorporated. And so how do we do that in a mindful way to be respectful to your ask and our duty, but we don't want to do this halfway. We're going to do it well, and we're going to do it the whole way, but we need to make sure that it's financially stable and can move forward. So thank you for your partnership. Jennifer.
Yes, just to echo Holly and Pam, thank you so much for bringing this up, and thank you for bringing up all of these ideas. They are much needed. I agree that with Holly that we need to have a special committee, that this is too big for something just for the equity committee to take on. They have a lot of other responsibilities, and I think we really need to be focused and intentional on what we are doing here. And so I think in order to make that partnership, it'd be important to have another committee of board members.
I would just like to make a comment, just so you guys can understand this a little better. Nikki has gave you dates in the past, and I just want you to look at the statutes. And I think you guys got the document that also we reviewed from the state of Minnesota in regards to, I think it was attached to that letter. I can't remember the name of it, but it was the self-assessment rubric, and there is statutes attached within that document as defining the purpose and understanding certain things. And I would like for the board to review them statutes if they could, or whoever is going to, and it will give you a better understanding. This policy was established in 1977. So when you guys say that you were sending letters of that everything was going well in this district, as a student of this district that started here in 1979, and I have children from 36 down to 16 right now, and there has been nothing through the school district for my children or me as a student going to this school. So it just seems kind of odd that you guys were filing a document that said that everything was good here, which in hand, as like I said, as a student of the district and having multiple children through the district, I have 7 children in my home, or had 7 children in my home. So it's not like I mean, I've been going through this for generations. So I just wish you could read all them statutes and understand it a little better, because some of us have seen, we lived it. I lived in cities. I knew what this meant. And I don't think you guys comprehend what it all entails. And them statutes explain a lot of it. So it just would help if you guys could read that. Thank you.
Say, Margot, I'm not sure if I or we have a copy of the self-evaluation that the parent committee completed. I may have missed it, but is there a way that you could resend that to me and then I can send it to the full board?
Sure, I can send you the assessment that we reviewed, and then that has everything right in it. But
yeah, that'd be great.
I think it is attached to the letter that you guys got. There was 3 documents attached to the bottom of that letter, and I think that's in there. So but if not, I can
Margot, maybe you can send a copy to Nikki and then she can email it.
Yeah, I can send it to Nikki and Kirsten, and they can get it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just and I can look as well, but let's if we could both do it, then for sure we'll get it.
Yep, I'll do that.
Wonderful. Anything else? No, all right. Well, Tina and Margaret, thank you so much for being here with us this evening. And Superintendent Anderson, if you could head up putting together a subcommittee and getting that going as soon as possible, that would be great. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right. And I'll
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And then I'll throw it right back to you, Superintendent Anderson, for the return to school update.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of information included in the packet. I'm just going to talk about a couple of items, but Shonda Jorgensen George Nemenich and I are all here to answer any questions that you might have. Let's see here. I think I'm just missing one piece here, so give me just a minute. I need to look something up. School. All right. So in the latest background information for return to school, we have the Education Minnesota survey results about returning to school. So I included the summary information from that. Talks about the teacher preferences in terms of or kind of gauging their opinions about coming back to school. This was before the last board meeting. So that survey is included as an attachment. Paul Hartman did follow up on the concern expressed about mask wearing during activities. There have been some questions about social distancing, and just a reminder for grades K through 4, we're still planning to follow the 6-foot social distancing guidelines because we have all the classes set up with the teachers, and so we want to continue that. For grades 5 through 12, it's recommended, highly recommended, that 3-foot guidelines are followed, but that there's a 6-foot distance between all students and adults. George, Shonda, and Brent made good progress on food service arrangements, but George will be here in a minute to discuss that further, I'm sure. 5th and 6th grade class sizes on online only teachers. I wish I had good news. We posted for the online only teachers. We did have 4 people who expressed interest, but they have not applied. So we do have concerns about 5th and 6th grade in terms of how that will look. The worst case is that we could do a 4+1 model where the 5th and 6th grade teachers would teach the kids in their class and teach the online only kids. That's what the high school teachers are doing, but we are really hoping that we can make some shifts in those classes so we can have some online only kids with online only teachers. So again, we're going to have to look at option B and option C to try to make that happen, but I wanted to be upfront with our status as of today. Great news on vaccinations. We believe that all staff members have been offered the first dose of the vaccine, and many have already received their second dose. By the time many kids or more kids come back to in-person, I think all or nearly all staff members will have been given that opportunity. There were some staff members who had to delay taking one or the first or second dose, for personal reasons. But I believe that we will have that offered to everyone before more kids come back in person. I will say though that as I mentioned in the board packet, I do have concerns about March 26th. That's a Friday. And that's because we have 266 staff members currently in line to get their second vaccination during the week of March 22nd, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We don't know how many staff members are scheduled for each of those days, but Wednesday, the test is being given in Zumbrota, Mazeppa. Thursday, the test is being given in Red Wing, and Friday, the test is in Cannon Falls. So our working assumption is that most staff members, a significant number of those staff members, will get the vaccinations on Thursday in Red Wing or Friday in Cannon Falls. So as you may know, there are more employees who are missing work after the second dosage of the vaccine. Usually symptoms start 12 to 36 hours after getting that second dose. So if we have staff members on Thursday getting the second dose, they may or may not be ill on Friday. So, the couple of ways of addressing, well, 3 ways of addressing it. We could wait and see how many staff members call in sick. The positive is that we might just go ahead as planned. The negative is that Friday morning, I might be making a call saying, sorry, no school today. The second possibility would be to call that Friday a transition day. We have 1 left, and that means there'd be no school for students, but that staff members would still report in order to do work with regard to bringing kids back to in-person instruction. And then the last option would be to simply call it a distance learning day. So we don't have to decide which of those 3 options we're going to do tonight, although, probably the sooner the better as far as planning purposes. And my thinking is, with 266 individuals, if even 10% of them are not able to work, that's 26 or 27 kids, and we cannot operate normal schooling with that many people gone. Rice County told Northfield Public Schools to expect about 30% of staff members not being able to work after that second dosage. So that's one big issue. There are some timing issues, and I think maybe I can pass it over to George here in just a few minutes, and he can talk about some of the concerns that high school staff members have in terms of the timing. We do have, we had some questions about staff mental health, and so I did try to summarize the work that our elementary and secondary principals are doing to help address that, and it's listed in the board packet. Again, we're not mental health therapists. We don't do assessments ourselves, but obviously we can do some things to help relieve the stress for our students and staff members. So I don't know if you want to ask some questions now, or if we should hand it over to Shonda to talk about social distancing and or George to talk about timing concerns. But we're ready and able to answer those questions or give more information. Shonda, I think you're on the call. Until there's some questions. Oh, go ahead, Holly.
I did have my name in the queue.
Sounds good.
Okay. Hi, Shonda. Hi, George. Thank you for coming tonight. First question is kind of one of a logistics one. Did you respond to Mr. Nemenich's email, Karsten, in reference to what his concerns were prior to bringing it to the board?
Yeah, we've, I'd have to reread the email message because it was sent maybe early last week. But George and I have talked on numerous occasions about many of those things. And when I took the original proposal on February 16th, I talked to George, before that meeting and kind of, incorporated his ideas for, the recommendation for bringing kids back to school. So yeah, George and I have spoken repeatedly, throughout the whole year, but especially the last month or 6 weeks as we were formulating plans.
So back to my logistical piece, my concern is that putting somebody's personal email in a board packet to you might make people hesitate to send you things that they feel strongly about, that you may put those in a board packet. So
sure.
When I'm saying logistical, like, I don't know whether or not George knew you were going to put it in the board packet. However, it looked like it was supposed to get to us for the workshop last week. And there's a lot going on with this. So when you and Pam and Jim made the agenda for Tuesday morning, there's no resolution or there's no recommendation based on what you're asking us to look through today. But there's one from George. which makes it look like it's George's recommendation.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And it's
And
not.
yeah, I think that's a fair comment. You know, I'm sure that when George originally sent it to me, he, you know, George, you probably weren't assuming that the actual verbatim email message would be in there. But I will say that, you know, George and I communicate often about this. And, you know, especially with the return to school plan, I'm a big believer in making sure that all points of view are heard. And there are no right or wrong answers on this. And I know that George is hearing a lot from his staff members. I'm not sure if George is hearing from parents and students as much, maybe, but certainly from his staff members. And I think he's expressing their voices. So, you know, like I say, George and I collaborate a lot. The original recommendation from February 16th matched George's recommendation at that time. And understandably, the board did not follow that recommendation. Of course, at the time, we had that 2-week staggered start requirement by the state. So as of February 16th, that was the governor's order to have 2 weeks. Because of that, you know, the original recommendation at April 5th and April 19th, bringing kids back. And understandably, board members thought, geez, April 19th seems awfully late. Let's move those things, you know, ahead 2 weeks. Made sense. Then, of course, on February 17th, we got the updated guidance that showed that we didn't have to do the 2-week staggered start. So, you know, I think it depends on the different perspective that you might have. You know, my perspective is that, you know, we've already announced the plan to parents. You know, kids have expectations, parents have expectations about coming back on certain days. And so that's why, you know, my thinking is, you know, I think we need to acknowledge that. At the same time, there are significant logistical issues that I think George expressed very well in his email. You know, I'm happy that our administrators are willing and able to share their perspective, because these are big decisions for all of us, and we want to share all the information to make the right decision. So, you know, it's kind of a roundabout way of answering your question, Holly, but hopefully that gives some context.
I think it just goes back to are you making a recommendation other than what we have going forward? Or are we just supposed to be discussing what?
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of questions from board members and others about a variety of issues. So I try to include all that information in the return to school plan tonight. You know, my recommendation is that we have to do something for that Friday of the week of March 22nd, which would be Friday the 26th, because my prediction is that we will not have enough staff members that day for in-person learning. And so, you know, if it was up to me solely, we would have a transition day on Friday, March 26th. Alternatively, if that wasn't acceptable to the board, then another possibility would be to convert that to a distance only day. So that would be my recommendation tonight. However, I do think it's important to recognize the concerns of staff members that have spoken to George over the last few weeks. And we need to hear those concerns. And that's really what George was expressing with that email. You know, it's you know, discussing the concerns that he's heard directly from staff members.
Jennifer.
I was just wondering if we could hear more specific details on getting the building ready and where we are on that, either from Shonda or George.
I can speak to that a little bit, Jennifer. So as far as like the furniture and things like that, things have been going actually smoother than I had originally anticipated, which is good. I spoke with Al Hartnick this morning about where we are at after the week of break, and we did get quite a bit of furniture moved, which is good. so in that sense, I think we're doing well. We've got some time here, obviously, before the 22nd. And so, yeah, as far as the moving of things, that's going well. My big concern, I guess, I'll go back to the concern I had has more to do with the vaccinations. I got 94 staff who are going to have that second vaccine Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of that first week back. And that's my big concern, is that even if, let's just say, a third of the people get sick from that, we're going to have quite a few people out, and I don't know if I can cover with subs. That's going to be kind of the issue I'm more concerned with. We haven't had quite the issue that the elementaries have with sub coverage, because I have staff who can cover internally. It's a little easier given our schedule and things to cover with internal staff. But even at a third, even if we took a third of our staff per day, let's just say we divided that up, you're looking at a significant number of staff out that would be difficult to cover. So that's my biggest concern, is late that first week. If we were to come back on the 22nd, really you're looking at Thursday and Friday. I'm really worried that we're going to have too many staff out, and to have kind of a quality day of school, let's put it that way. And I was glad to hear that Superintendent Anderson is thinking about using one of those extra days that we have from the state as a possibility to kind of help with that on a Friday. But that's really my biggest concern with starting at the earlier date of the 22nd. The other issue, well, when you look at that, the governor's guidance came out the day after we made the decision to start with this two-week staggered start, which, it is what it is. But since we don't have to do that, my thought was, would it not be best to start? One of the other logistical things is that April 5th is the start of the fourth quarter, and it would be a much cleaner start for the building if we could start on Monday the 5th with everybody coming back. And just so everybody knows, we sent out a survey. Some of you probably received it as parents. A survey just asking our students, are you coming back to school? Are you going to be staying distant as a distance learner? And right now, with just a little bit under the 2/3 of our student population reported, we're at about 80% coming back, 20% staying distance. So with that, we're probably looking at somewhere around 900 plus students going to be in the building. And it just seems like if we started on the 5th, we could start with everybody back that first day. That's the start of the fourth quarter. And it would be nice. It would be clean. Normally, a quarter is not a big deal because we've been on a semester schedule. But as you all know, our quarters have become semesters. So to me, it seems like it would be a lot cleaner for our student body and our staff if we could just start it on the 5th. And that's why I go back to the governor's guidance. If we don't have to do the staggered start, and I completely understand why we would have wanted to start on the 22nd, given that staggered start. But since we don't really need to do that, I was thinking it might be just a lot cleaner to start it on the 5th. So that was another thought I had. The other thing I was thinking about too was just the mitigation aspect. We just had spring break, and a lot of people were traveling, and you hear from other districts, and Shonda can probably speak to this a little bit more, but with the travel, there have been, like I'll just give you an example. I know in Chaska, they just had a outbreak of a different variant of the virus. You know, we don't know what our folks are bringing back in necessarily, but would it be more prudent to wait, give ourselves a few more weeks of hybrid, and then, you know, with that extra few weeks, number one, we'll have our entire staff will have gotten vaccinated with 2 vaccines, and we'll have given them time so that that we could start on the 5th and basically start fairly safely for our staff, and I think our students as well. And then, you know, as far as, like I said, the building logistics, I think we're going to be okay, regardless of when we start. And that's a big thanks to our maintenance crew that's been doing a wonderful job of putting things together. The one thing that I would say from a standpoint of these are small things, but I'll just, you know, they'll become kind of the things that can get in the way. But because if we started on the 22nd and that's still the 3rd quarter, things like the lunchroom, we'd have to redo the seating charts in the lunchroom, because we're going to have to do seating chart lunches because of the contact tracing that we're going to have to do. So that's one of the things we'll have to kind of be aware of, and we would just have to do the seating charts over again after 2 weeks. And as it looks, maybe that will be less than, I mean, we're talking a matter of days, really. If we have that Friday, and then of course the following Friday is already a planned day out. So really we're talking about 2 4-day weeks, and really with the distance learning in there as well, it's really, we're down to about 6 days. So what we're gaining, in my opinion, isn't enough to warrant starting that early when we have the opportunity to start cleanly on the 5th. That's just my opinion and my thought on it. So that's why I would ask if we could rethink maybe starting on the 5th rather than on the 22nd.
Anna, you're in the queue.
I'm just wondering, Shonda, and maybe George too, if you can talk about that 3-foot spacing. Is that going to be feasible? I think that's something that we talked about, you know, at the previous meeting, with when we have 80% of our student body back in person, can we, in some of those more full classrooms at the high school, can we have them full and still have students 3 feet apart?
I think it'll be easy. In a lot of classrooms, there's going to be some that we're going to have to look at and see how many students really are going to be in there. Can we do it? My goal this week is to go through, kind of like I did last summer and did the whole 6-foot distancing with my 6-foot pipe. I'm going to get a 3-foot pipe and, you know, really kind of hand out, you know, figure out what the numbers are to make it easier for George and his crew to figure out how many people we can get. The one thing that's going to impact, though, is the space that teachers will have. So if we've got a classroom where we have 35 students, the staff member now, their room to move around is going to get smaller and smaller. So it's how much do we want to encroach on them? Because I would like to see, and we're trying to work it with custodial staff, is that teachers should be able to be in their room and be 6 feet from students at all times. Now, obviously, they're going to go up and help, but if they have a space where they can teach and they know for sure they're 6 feet away, is what we're really going to do. So it's possible. It's going to look a lot different, obviously. And we'll just have to go and see the spaces that we can do it. And if we have to adjust by a couple of people, you know, George is good at that. So I figure we'll work together to make it happen.
Yeah, we do have, you know, I will say, Anna, we do have some classrooms that are larger, and we, like you said, we talked about that before. I feel pretty confident that we'll be able to make that work, because we do have still a number of students that are staying distance, so that may impact some of that number. And then the other part of it is we can maximize space in those classrooms. We've been pretty good at kind of making sure that everything's up to code, you might say, and making sure that we have enough space.
Jennifer?
I noticed on the newsletter that March 30th was supposed to be a distance learning day due to ACT testing. Is that still something, or was that a misprint?
No, that I think that's that Tuesday, correct? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that is still a day. It'll be distance for all students except for those taking the ACT. That's correct.
Other questions for George or Shonda? Comments? Anna?
Well, we'll just see what happens here. I would like to make a motion to move the start of in person for the high school to the quarter break, April 5th, not have the 2-week staggered start.
Mr. Bryant, you're in the queue? No? We need a second on that motion first? Yeah. Anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, motion made by Anna, seconded by Holly. Now, Mr. Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very dangerous slope we're going down right now. We promised people that we would start school on 22nd, even though we want to start them earlier. Now you're going to push them out another 4 weeks, so you go back to February 16th. So we're going out 45 days, but for some reason we're not quite ready after having it out for 30 some days, to the 22nd. So no, probably longer than 45. The kids are ready to go back to school. We heard loud and clear again today in the emails. I am not in favor of delaying it any longer. We need to get these kids back in school. They're long overdue. The mental health is a concern for me. The best educational practices that we want them to have is we all agree be in school. You know, I can understand the Friday the 26th, but you know, I can agree with that because I know people that have had the second shot, and it affects everybody differently. Let's be honest, not everybody will, and that's why they have percentage down. But I am not going to put my name on any motion to approve the change that what the parents and students already been notified on to go forward. We're starting school on the 22nd of March. So I will not be in favor of that motion for the benefit of our children who need to be back in school. So thank you.
Arlen?
Thank you. I'm on top of the fence and I don't know which side I'm going to jump off. I'm really torn on this because we have, as Jim stated here, told parents that we're going to take these students starting the 22nd. But I also think the points that George put out in that email are very valid, many of them. Had I had that information in front of me and we didn't have that 2-week rolling start, I would be fully in support of going to the April 5th for everybody. On the flip side, what George was saying, they're putting all those other students in the school. We're only that's not the right word, or only. We are putting 3 grades into the high school from hybrid to full, or 4+1 on the 22nd. And so if those numbers are right, 80% are going to be in person and 20% will be distance. We're going to have roughly an extra 80 students per class. In my estimation, my numbers could be off, for 3 grades. So that's going to be adding 240 students to the building for those 2 weeks in between. And then we'll be adding another 480 total student count on those others. I shouldn't say students added, but I hopefully you understand what I'm getting to is the density of the building on a given day will increase roughly 80 students per class or per grade in my estimation, just running some quick numbers in my head. I really want our staff to be fully vaccinated. I know that's not going to happen. They've all had the opportunity to get the vaccine. I had my vaccine also last week. I won the lottery, and what a relief it was to be able to do that. I get it. And I also want to jump out and say, hey, I'm vaccinated. I can wear my mask and I won't feel like I'm going to die if I get COVID. But it's not time yet. I got to stay back for another 3.5 weeks, plus give that time for that second vaccination. I just don't know where I'm going on this. I really don't. But I do think we need to realize what we are putting in the classroom is not 80 on 6 grades. It's 80 extra density of 80 students more in 3 grades for those 2 weeks. And so everybody do what you are. I'll make my decision when the vote comes here, whether I'll go along with Anna's motion or not. But I really think we have an obligation to not throw another thing out there on the parents that we're going to change that date back 2 weeks. And I do think we have, as Jim said, I do think we need to address that Thursday and Friday, and that's maybe we can flip Wednesday in the 4+1 to a Thursday, and then you have to make the decision what to do on the Friday. And then we're finding out the following week we got ACT testing, so it's a distance learning day already. So everybody make your decision. I'm going to respect all of you for whatever you decide. I hope you respect me, whatever I decide, and I will make my decision, I'm sure, within a few minutes here. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I seconded the motion because I'm not done thinking about it yet. But, and I will quantify with, and you have all made very, very good points. And I don't discount the fact that people are counting on March 22nd. And they have told their children, and their children are excited. My question is to Shonda. How many people do we have scheduled during the week of March 22nd to have a second vaccination in the district?
We offered it to 266 people. We had 218 slots that week, so I don't know who it is or who got it or who didn't. And so tops 218 people will get it.
And that's E12 all staff?
All staff, yep.
So it's not just teaching staff?
No.
Right.
Let's see if we can break it down a little bit. So a total of 266. We have 1 at Colville, 28 at Sunnyside, 31 at Burnside, 12 at Jefferson, 41 at Twin Bluff, 94 at the high school, 4 at Tower View, and 3 at River Bluff. So it's spread out across the entire district.
Can people use COVID sick days if they have symptomatic reactions?
That I don't know.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't know. I always tell them to go talk to Amy French.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to know. Thank you, Shonda.
Yep.
Karsten?
Yeah, I just have a point of clarification. I know that Anna's motion did mention in-person learning, but I'm assuming that both Anna and Holly meant 4+1 learning because that'll match the rest of the grades at the high school. Is that fair to say, Anna and Holly? And I might be violating some norms here. Maybe it takes an amendment, or something like that. But I just wanted to clarify for my own purposes.
Yes, I was just suggesting that instead of having the 2 start dates, we go to 1, but everything else remaining the same in terms of the 4+1, or that structure.
Thank you.
Jennifer, did you want to weigh in? I don't want to put you on the spot, but. you and I have yet to weigh in, so I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak before we call the vote.
Yeah, I can. I'm struggling. I agree with what Arlen said. I really appreciate all of the input that George brought forward, and I really want to make it a successful start as the kids return. And I think, you know, our job is to provide the best education we can possible for the students. And I just wonder if waiting and bringing everyone back on April 5th is doing that instead of March 22nd. I struggle because also, and you can look at it both ways, but we only really would have, is it just 3 or 4 days, additional days on the March 20, if we bring them back March 22nd, or is it 5? I'm not sure. I didn't do that, but anyway, 3 days where they would not be there. And so I'm just, you know, you can look at it both ways, whether that's good or bad in bringing the kids back. But we did make a promise to our families that this is when school was going to start. However, we have additional information now that we did not have then. I really like the idea of having the staff completely vaccinated. So I'm with Arlen all the way. I'm on the fence right now. You know, it could go either way.
I'd just like to point out really quick, that week, the 22nd, that also includes 15 bus drivers. So it's not just district staff, it's people bringing our kids to and from school. So I just wanted to add that part.
And that's toward the end of the week, right, for that second vaccination?
Yeah, they go in Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Okay. So I guess I'm the only one that hasn't really spoken yet. And George, I thank you for bringing these 6 points forward and for Karsten to share them with us. But we've had, you know, we made the decision on February 16th. So we've had since the morning of the 17th to prepare to have our students to come back. So that's 5 full weeks. And I think that we need to give our staff more credit for being able to make our buildings ready for our students to be ready. Our parents are ready. And I understand that we need to very carefully balance the needs of staff with the needs of students. But we haven't been talking about the importance of what students need right now. Their parents are begging us to get them into school. While it is only a few more days for those 3 cohorts to come back, those several days that those students can come back are significantly meaningful to those students who get to come back and who are already counting on March 22nd. Our senior class has not all been in school for a full year together. That is impactful, and we need to think about what their needs are, not just educationally, but socially and mental health wise. I can tell you as a parent of a senior that the mental health toll that is going on in our community is significant. It's not easily charted. You can't put it easily into a pie graph, but I will tell you that our kids are hurting and they need to be in physical presence with other people. We are not meant to be isolated individuals. That is not who we are as a community, as Red Wing, as human beings. Our teachers need to be with our kids need to be with our teachers. And we are going to do that as safely as possible. I've heard from Shonda say that we're able to make that safe for our teachers. We've got vaccines on the way. We've got a contingency plan for those Thursdays and Fridays that Thursday and Friday. So I absolutely cannot support pushing the start of school off anymore. I can't. And I very much appreciate your points, George. But I have faith in you and your staff and our administrative team and Shonda and our COVID team to make this work. And I am going to hand that back to you to do what you feel you can for our community and for our kids, because I think that's really important. And Nikki, I see you in the queue as well as Karsten.
So first I want to just really remind everybody that small percentage we keep getting emailed from parents does not represent all parents. I just want to make sure that that is clear. Second of all, I want to thank George. Really advocating on behalf of your staff. Unfortunately, with how things have gone, the back and forth, I just hope that this point from here on out is a learning experience that we all can grow from, and bringing everybody to the table at decision-making time. So I'm not in favor of the go, stop. We adults, we can pick up and we can use each other as support during this time if we need it, but I feel comfortable in the plan that we have in moving forward. It's our children that don't have those tools maybe, and they're lacking their support at this time that I'm really concerned about. So that's just what I had to say. So I'm done speaking.
Thank you for saying that, Nikki. And I apologize. I was looking down my list and I was going to get to you. So thank you for putting your name in the queue. And Karsten, if you could wrap it up, and then I think we need to move forward in our agenda.
Yeah, I just have a reminder that regardless of the vote on this particular motion, we should still probably consider Friday, March 26th, because, you know, even if the motion passes, we start everyone April 5th, you know, we'll still have teachers and other staff members in the building on March 26th, just with half the number of students. So just a reminder of that.
Arlen?
Thank you. I just jumped off the fence. Suppose you want to know where I landed. We made a decision to go back to school on the 22nd. Yes, there are concerns with it, but we cannot continue being a wishy-washy board. We made this decision. I'm going to be in full support of continuing on as we did in our vote a couple weeks back, and I will be supporting continuing on as we originally planned. As far as Karsten on that Friday or whatever, I think I'm willing to address that later. I don't know how to do it at this point, but I will be voting to against the motion. I will be supportive of a motion to continue on if we need to make a motion. Thank you.
Yeah, Nikki and then Holly.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we're to do about what Karsten had stated, but I am willing to support Karsten's recommendations on that Friday.
Yeah, Holly.
I just jumped off the fence with Arlen on his side, and I do support the original plan with the misnomer that flexibility is the key. And if something has to stop or cancel, or the bus route doesn't get there on time because there's a sick bus driver, or we have to be very gracious and forgiving to the little things that might pop up that will feel very big. But if we stick to the 22nd and move it forward with all intents and purposes, that things will go as planned, knowing they may not. I can support that and Karsten's recommendation from previous.
Okay, so the motion on the table was made by Anna and seconded by Holly to move the starting date back for students to April 5th. So we will go ahead with the 4+1 plan. So we'll go ahead and vote on that motion, starting with Mr. Derricks.
No.
Anna Ostendorf.
Yes.
Holly Tower,
No.
Jennifer Tift,
No.
Jim Bryant,
No.
Nikki Buck,
No.
and chair votes no. So that motion fails 1-6. I don't know that we need another motion on start dates of school because it has already been voted on, and so that's already established.
You're correct, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and so it sounds like our board is in agreement that we will leave it to the administrative team and Karsten Anderson to decide the best way to approach Thursday and or Friday of that week. Arlen?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do we need to make we probably don't, but I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to make a motion to give Carson the authority to make adjustments as needed depending on staffing. Would that be appropriate to make a motion like that or needed?
Jen, Holly, are you both on?